say hello just so we know that we can hear you?
Well, hello.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Okay. All right, you guys. I'm personally really excited about this panel discussion. We have got some tremendous experts in this field. I'm going to go ahead and read some bios, and you'll see them blush, maybe. Um, we're going to start off by introducing Laura Traxler. So, Laura currently serves as the Director of Admissions at Douglas J. Aveda Institutes. And leads admissions teams at locations across Michigan, Tennessee, Illinois. She started her career in sales management and business development as a salon manager in a Regis Corporation salon. Laura grew a new business with year-over-year sales growth and was recognized by her company as a national leader. After graduating with her MBA credentialed, she chased new challenges in IT, staffing, recruiting, and admissions at her alma mater, Northwood University. Shout out. Anybody in the chat went to Northwood? She later served as the director of sales for her local chamber of commerce. These roles combined bring a broad sales and customer experience background to Laura's admissions leadership. Laura, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Welcome, everyone.
Okay, Amy Tewell. So we're going to introduce Amy. She's been in the beauty industry for over 20 years, of which 15 years has been spent in higher education. She is currently the director of admissions for L'Esprit Academy. Amy has worked and trained in admissions, education, student services, and campus operations. She loves to learn and loves to share her knowledge. She's in the right spot today, sharing some of that knowledge. Amy is dedicated to helping anyone in her path succeed. Along with her proven track record as an operator, Amy is a licensed cosmetology educator. She loves this industry and is passionate about growing the campuses, improving outcomes, and cultivating relationships with staff and students. Amy, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Okay. All right. On to my good friend, Rob Thatcher. He is the leader and founder of SalesCom. Rob has spoken in almost every major city in the country with almost every major brand in the beauty school industry, helping to improve their show rates. Like, this is his main focus and passion. He does as many as 30 trainings a week over Zoom and 2 to 3 13-hour presentations in person, those trainings per month. He has helped hundreds of admissions and service employees over the years increase sales and decrease their no-show rates as much as 60%. Schools that work with SalesCom and Rob often see show rates of up to 95% on a regular basis. He continually works on new ways to help each school. Again, this is his life and passion. Rob, my friend, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. That's a great intro, by the way. I got some sort of clapping. I don't know where that came from.
I wonder who wrote that intro.
I don't know. It's hard to say what happened.
Okay, you guys, we're just going to get into it. People are eager to learn. Amy, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
Here's your question. Everybody knows that admissions can be a grind, right? Day in, day out. You know, you're focused on changing lives and hitting budgets, goals. How do you connect with your team to keep them motivated? And how do you keep yourself motivated?
Oh, I love that question. There's so many different ways that we can motivate our staff, right? I think there's a lot of monetary ways that we could do it. But I really like to do it more organically. So our team is very tenured. Celebrations and celebrating the wins is obviously key to keeping them motivated and keeping them going every day. I work right alongside with them. So though I'm a director, I'm on the phones, I'm working with parents. We're doing enrollments left and right. But I think it's also really important for them to stay connected with the campus teams. So we don't like to separate that. We want to keep them on the phone with those teachers, telling them what's happening every day, the excitement of their students, who's graduating, what those graduates are doing. So our team stays 100% connected with the campus so we can make sure that we're celebrating those students and seeing those wins and those lives change so we can continue to do what we do.
Yeah, so they're involved in every process. They're part of the passion of
Yes.
enrolling and graduating and learning. Because I would imagine if they're experiencing everything about a school, it's easier to translate that in like an admission
Absolutely.
process to a prospect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Laura, Rob, hey, anything to add? After every question, if you guys feel like you want to add anything, please feel free to. Also, everyone in the chat, hey, if you have something to add that you feel like is valuable, please put it in the chat. Again, this is a learning environment.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think she did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and anybody that has anything to add, please do add it in the comments. I'm here to learn too, so I'm super excited to be a part of this.
Yeah, constructive criticism, that's fine.
Absolutely.
There's different opinions out there,
Mhm.
and we want to hear it. That's how we
Yeah.
learn. Okay, all right, Laura, you ready?
Yep, I am ready.
Okay. Let's talk about filling up a program.
Yeah.
There may not be a lot of demand.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously marketing needs to do their thing. But sometimes, there might be a program that's more popular than another, but it's like, hey, we want to be able to fill that program too. What's your approach to find enrollments in a certain program you want to fill in admissions specifically?
Oh gosh. So, we're going through this right now, actually. Spring is upon us. It's not fall. I'm sure everybody's nodding their head that they're in this situation as well. Fall is our breadwinner, is our bread and butter at all schools, really. So, um, you know, first of all, if you want to fill spring, like you said, marketing has to do their job, but also um, we have people that go out into the community and into schools. So you got to make sure that's happening well in advance as well. You can absolutely do last minute efforts. So we do that in the community, local events, schools, trying to find people like career fairs, colleges, people that can actually enroll right now for these spring classes when your high school seniors are not yet, graduated and able to enroll. So want to kind of have a strategy for that. And we absolutely do that at Douglas J. So thinking about that, but then in the last minute when you're like, shoot, what can we do in a month or 2 months to try to get those 1 or 2 last enrollments? So absolutely thinking about whatever maybe you have missed in your strategy, the plan that you have set out in the community, any last ditch efforts. But, I am someone also that says, okay, rework your leads, the reps can only do so much day to day. So while we have a great plan for nurturing, then we find incentives or things that we can do to help, get people on the phone and re-engage them. So we do that all the time, re-engaging those old leads.
Yeah, that's smart, right? If you got a good CRM, who has, maybe gotten through the process, maybe they've inquired. It's like, hey, let's reach back out to these people. Because maybe the timing just wasn't right back then, and you never know, but re-engaging old leads. So
Yeah.
and
And
having a plan for the future. Yeah.
yeah. And thinking in that plan, you might be thinking like, how do you make a plan? What does that strategy look like? The first question you'd want to ask yourself is, where are the leads spending their time? That's where you want to show up. So think about, like I said, community colleges, community events. We're all in the beauty school industry. So art generated, art focused kind of creative events, if that's something in the community that generally draws people that's interested to, crossover type of industry, that would be perfect.
Yeah. And in the chat, thanks for those of you who are asking questions in the chat. Panelists, if you feel like you want to take a stab at answering them, or just anyone else in the chat, right? If somebody posts a question in the chat and you feel like you have a good answer, put an answer in the chat.
Yeah, re-engagement is a good question there too. I'll jump in on that. Yeah, you definitely don't want to go once you've received like do not contact or things like that. We don't
go back to those. So these are ones that have just kind of gone silent, that have talked to us and stayed engaged throughout, but they're just not pulling the trigger. So we get creative on how can we get them to actually talk to us when they themselves have become unmotivated, trying to just motivate them.
Yeah. And
I
then,
agree with that, Laura. Just to kind of touch base on that, we also work our no start list. So anybody that may have had a family emergency come up or something like that, those are kind of re-engaging those leads as well. And I do have to, I tell you, working these leads and being in this industry, working with all of these people, very rarely do we get the stop, don't contact us anymore. But those ones, unfortunately, unless they re-engage with you, can't do a lot.
Do you know, I'm going to throw something in here really fast too. I am shocked at how often schools don't have a plan. Like I'll go in and train and I'll be like, okay, so let's go. How are we doing with our high schools? And they're going, oh, high schools? And you're like, yeah, high schools. I mean, we're about to graduate. How's that? We needed to do that. I knew we forgot something. And you're like, you got to be looking. I was on dirt bikes with my kids last night, and I was teaching my daughter to ride her little dirt bike. And I said, you got to look 10 feet ahead. Always look 10, 15 feet ahead. Don't look what's right in front of you, because you're going to be going fast if you're going to hit a rock and tip over. And I think a lot of schools do that. They think 1 or 2 feet ahead. Anybody can fill a fall class. If you're excited about filling your fall class, I got news for you. Your school stinks. Rob, did he just say that? I know, but you probably don't have a plan put together. And so what you have to do is you got to go, okay, during these months, we visit these schools, we do this thing. During these days, these months, this is what we do it. You break it down not just by month, but by week. And sometimes if you have someone new, you break it down by hour and make sure you're hitting all the cylinders. Again, people excited about filling a fall class and bragging to you, it's the first sign that they don't know what they're doing.
yeah.
Yep. And just to piggyback on that, I always say if it's like I just said, 1 or 2 months out, you really are left to, you're scrambling. You really are left to the leads you have, because we know our lead cycle, you can get those people that enroll that quick in a month, but you shouldn't be counting on that. You really should have that strategy that is a year or two out.
Amen.
To really capitalize on your market as a whole.
Yep.
There's been a couple questions in the chat about how far back do you go on old leads? Are we talking like years, months, weeks? What do you guys think?
Yeah, we go back.
Yeah, same.
As we can, as far as it makes sense. And I don't treat those ones that have inquired years and years back like they're not the ones that I beat up constantly, but I never count anybody out unless they've told me that they're counting themselves out.
We'll separate those into 3 groups. We separate it into what we call tornado day, and then a barbell day and a feather day. If you're on a tornado day where you're so crazy that you got 5 or 6 tours, you've got all these new leads coming in, you should not be calling people that are a year old. What are you doing? You don't have time for that. But if you're at a feather day where you have 1 tour and you have maybe 1 or 2 new leads and you have time, you may dig into, you have to list your priorities. What's most important? Well, get to your tours, then get your new leads, then get your old leads, and then if you have time, hit those ancient leads. But don't flush them until you just absolutely know they tell you no way. But there's usually time. It's time management problem that prevents us from not getting to old leads, right? It's not should we, it's a time management issue.
Okay, well, let's get to the next questions. If you do have a question and it's germane to the question that was asked, please put it in the chat. But also any just other questions about admissions, hopefully we'll have some time at the end where we can just answer any kind of admissions question. So Rob, this one's for you.
Oh, I'm ready.
All metrics, KPIs and admissions are important, right? Knowing what I know, which isn't much, I know if somebody shows up for a tour, like the chances of that person enrolling goes way up.
Yeah.
How do we improve the show rates?
So you're asking, this is like a really broad question, right? So it's like, how do I find the best car for the money, right? It's like, it's a good question, but there's a lot of components to it. I'm going to say that there's one thing that everybody looks at me funny, and I got the stats to back it up. Here we go. Call length. Call length. People will get on the phone and think that they should be on there for 3.5 minutes. Well, we've studied this over and over and over, and it's about 9.5 minutes. So it's a bell curve. It goes from 8.5 to 9.5 minutes, and the peak is at the 8.5 to 9.5. That's when they start to show up. Minimum of 6, maximum of 12. So that's minutes. That's where we see that people start to show up. Also, total number of questions asked, right? So we usually minimum open-ended versus closed-ended, but a minimum of 6 or 7 questions. And these are relationship building questions like, take me back to when you first knew you had a passion for hair. That's a conversational story building question. I want them to tell me a story, and then I validate as they speak. And then I would say 3 is, what's your confirmation process? So those are the first 3 questions I ask when you have a crappy show rate, right? Is how long are your calls? How many questions are you asking? And what's your confirmation process? And if they don't have a confirmation process, often it doesn't really matter what happens on the phone. We're probably not going to get a great show rate because that confirmation process is important. But if we confirm everything and then we go 9.5 minutes and we're asking the right amount of questions and we have what I call the 4-part close, which is kind of the fourth part there, we can get that show rate down into single digits in most markets. In big cities where there's no parking, I use that as a rule of thumb. The show rate's a little bit, we usually, we're happy with the low teens, 10 to 13% no show. But in suburban to rural, we're looking at, we want to be 5, 6, 7% no show, if not 0.
Anything to add, Laura, Amy?
No, I agree. I think confirmation for us is the biggest piece. It's just making sure we're reaching out and saying, hey, please don't forget your tour. So it's just using that drip system, send a couple different texts out to confirm.
Yeah. And hey, let's challenge something, right? We saw in the chat, like 95% of my admissions communication is now text or email. No one wants to speak on the phone. What are we doing here? This is
Aubrey,
this is hot topic.
I demand you call me immediately, right? Like you and I need to be good friends, because here's the deal. This is a thing that Gen Z, they're trying to convince us that Gen Z wants. I work with a lot of youth outside of what I do for a living. I work with youth on the side. They try to convince you that they want text, but that's not true. Most of them are lonely, and most of them want a connection with somebody, and they don't have anybody. And so when you take the time and slow down and show interest in them, they actually want to talk to you. Do not let them tell you that they just want to text. They actually want to connect. They just make you feel like they don't. I promise you that if you text to make appointments, you will see a 20% reduction minimum on show rate. Now you may say, Rob, well, I have a 98% show rate. First of all, I challenge that assumption, that stat. But even if you were right, you would be an anomaly. You would not be that would not be something we see regularly. We can see schools shifting to texting, email, making appointments, and their show rate will dive every time, every time. So, but it's just, how do you do it? So it's not a question of whether or not you should get on the phone. It's more of a question of, how do I get on the phone when they don't want to? And I have a curriculum for that. We have whole pieces and parts how to do that.
Okay, let's good conversations here. Let's get on the next question. We've got so many other good questions. So Amy, what are some of the biggest challenges you are facing in admissions at the moment?
Well, I think, and this might be for quite a few people right now, I feel like we can connect with aesthetics and manicuring students super easy. They pick up the phone, they're ready to go. Cosmetology is where we struggle. So it's a little bit more of a cat and mouse game, right? But we're not going to give up on you just because we've called you 6 times. We're going to call you again. We're shoot you a text and email. I find though, recently, for instance, stats that we pulled, that they are converting, it's a lengthier process with them. So you're looking at a 3 to 6 month process with a cost student on our leads where we're at versus, a 2 week to a month process. So I think that that's probably our biggest challenge right now, is getting them on the phone and getting them booked with us.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great response.
Okay, Laura, you ready? Okay,
Yes.
Hey, the recession is a thing, right? What's your approach in admissions when prospects maybe juggling how to pay for life and school.
Yeah, yeah. And I will add to your question, right now, student loans are a big hot topic. We have a generation that is they're looking at college different, or college/beauty school differently than how I did when I went to beauty school and college. So we were willing to fund it all day long and didn't think about it. And now that's all you see. That combined with the recession, I think we've done so much work over the last year, especially a year or two, I will say, to keep that in mind. You're approaching someone who doesn't want to take out student loans and has a sticker shock, struggling to pay bills, like you said. So we're honest with them. We ask, for their feedback. Where are you at in this process? Have you had financial aid before? Are you familiar with that at all? How do you feel about student loans? Trying to get them to tell us how they feel in their situation, and then informing them. We actually have financial aid officers that sit down with every student before we will enroll them. We won't enroll until they've met with a financial aid officer. And I know that's unique. I've never worked for a school that does that won't enroll, we won't take any money until they've met with that financial aid officer and they've seen exactly what the plan looks like for them. I think that's key, but then also you have to be willing to support them. So giving them other resources like scholarships, our admissions reps, we've done a lot of work to arm them with scholarships that are out there specific for beauty schools. And we're always looking for more. We're always asking them to look in your community. Credit unions sometimes will have education, student loans and or scholarships. Sometimes you'll just get a scholarship for being a member at a credit union, something like that. So in our local communities, we're trying to be aware of those things as well. So the short answer is education on, what does it really look like for you? And then if this isn't doable today, okay, let's plan. And we want to be a part of that. So we require a down payment for our kit for all of our programs. So, okay, we'll set up a payment plan for you. Even leading up to the kit, even before you start. So whatever they need, we're trying to involve ourselves. I always say it's get in their business, insert yourself into their situation, because a lot of them don't have support. A lot of them have no one to turn to, and certainly no one that has been in their shoes before. Of course, we have markets that have great family support, and those are our best schools. Honestly, the ones that are bigger cities that have less family support, that's when this is really key. So short answer is educate them from every angle.
From all the different options. Love it. Okay.
Chris, can I say one thing to that? I just love what Laura said. I'm sorry to throw in. I just love what Laura said, because here's the reality: is so many schools are reducing requirements, and she was using words like require. You need to require things of these people. If you don't, they walk all over you, and then everybody goes, "Why is everybody walking all over me?" Because you've cut your reduction. You don't actually expect anything of these kids or these people, and as you expect things of people, then they usually will rise to the occasion. So I thank you, Laura, because I think so many people are going in the other direction. You're like, no, require something of them. You have a product that's valuable. Make them require things of them, for heaven's sakes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Hey, question for you right now. Let's move on to these questions.
Okay.
What do you see in admissions that people do that they think is the right thing, but it might be hurting them? There's a better way. From your perspective, what are you seeing, man?
Well, that one is the texting and emailing, and I just love that she was so honest about that. Hey, here's what we're doing. I see that a lot. The other thing that I see is that we think, when I first started in the industry, and this is going back, I'm almost 20 years in the industry now. I've been doing this I think we're at 17 or 18 years. I tell you, man, at the beginning, we were doing heating and air conditioning before I ever got into this schools, helping heating and air conditioning companies, get appointments. And that was really hard. And I started listening to beauty schools and I was like, well, now wait a minute, this is a lot easier. And then I realized, holy crap, these people don't show up. They just agree to appointments and then they don't show up. And so one of the things that I think is the thing that people think they're doing right is that if they get an appointment, they did a good job. Well, again, everybody agrees to an appointment. Almost everybody agrees to an appointment. It's, did you really slow down and connect with the person? And if you did never feel a connection, then you probably thought you did something right, but ultimately you didn't. And the connection comes across as you ask good, powerful questions, and the person feels at ease with you as best you can. And some people they're never going to feel at ease with you. They're just, they're anxious people that are not going to feel at ease. But the majority of people are just looking for someone who cares. And so one of the things that happens when they get on the phone, one of the biggest mistakes when we talk about phone calls, is that we end up talking all about ourselves. Right? We say, in other words, our school, saying, well, our school has this, the program has this, and then and they go on for 4 or 5 minutes, and look, the lead has tuned out. They're not listening to you anymore. And so you have to stop that. The focus should be on the person. You should give almost no information on the phone. We have strategies to do that so it doesn't make people mad, because if you do it wrong, you're going to make people mad. It's going to seem like you're playing hide the football. But at the end of the day, I think that's a big mistake people make, is they don't really know how to ask questions. And then they don't really know how to validate when people give answers. And then they don't really know how to make someone feel important and not to manipulate. Like, you actually should care. And so those are some of the things. The other thing is they think they're doing tours right. And I know that sounds arrogant, like, oh, they think they know. But I've been in so many schools, and what will happen is they go on these tours and they show them what they want to show them. So in other words, the admissions rep gives a tour that they want to give instead of the tour that the lead wants to receive. And so what we do is, before we sit down, we ask them things like, what are you here to see? What are you excited about? And then I take them on that tour. If there's 10 stops, I show them the 4 most that they're the most excited about. I show them those things. And that's what and it gets their attention. And then also, last thing I would say is they don't actually ask people to buy. They go on tours and then show them out the back door. And you're like, you just spent all that time with them, and then you said, okay, well, we'll let financial aid will get back to you in 3 to 5 days, and see you then. No return appointment, no asking to buy, no return appointments. And so they think they're doing the tour right, but ultimately it's like, we could have just done that over Zoom, what you just did. That wasn't effective. And so having the tools, I think, really, really helps. I know that was a really long answer, Chris. I'll say less words from here on out, I promise.
There was a lot there, a lot of good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like. And we're running up on time. Guys, in the community, there are some good questions. If you feel like you have an answer for a question, let's not just leave it up to the panel here to answer them. Go ahead and try to answer that the best you can. Share what's working for you. Share some mistakes, right? Like, we used to do this, but we corrected it and now it's better, right? Like, those are the best learning lessons, like the mistakes that we've made or have been making. Okay, Rob, appreciate the response.
Yeah.
Amy, hey, time management is a must in admissions.
Yeah.
What tools and resources do you use to help you focus and manage your time? And also, how do you help your team with that?
So we have a schedule that's open to everybody. So we can see everybody's schedule every single day, what they're doing, who they should be communicating with. But I also think it's super important for them to schedule out specific time for their admin work, because you can get so caught up with working with students and getting on the phone. And then all of a sudden we're out of compliance with all of our audits. And we're like, oh, wait a minute, we have expired driver's licenses. No, ma'am. So I think that that's important. I also think that we have to work off of our calendar. We have to live there to make sure that we're doing everything that we need to do. And then we got to follow up and touch base with our team and be like, hey, what else do you need? What can I provide you? If it's a simple notebook, let me send you a notebook so you can make a task list of everything that you need to do. So that's a big portion of us, is just maintaining that calendar and portioning out that time that you need for either admin work or calls or whatever you need.
Got it. Helpful. Good advice. Yeah, man. Time management. There's so many
Huge.
spinning in admission.
Yeah, Rob was talking about that. Like, if you're not managing your time, you can't reach out to those old leads. You're just working in the now and then, and all of those people that you've paid for, they're gone on the wayside. And then we're sitting here saying, why can't we hit budget? Okay, we didn't manage our time appropriately enough to do that, right? Because everybody has different things that they have to do during the day. So again, manage that time, that you have, stay off the phone with your mom. You don't have to call your kids 18 times a day.
Yes.
And you have to be realistic about it, right? Because again, we're here for these students. We're not here for just ourselves improving numbers. And I mean, obviously we want to make money. Who doesn't want to make money? That's why we have people like Rob on our side to be able to tell us, hey, this is what you can do to increase it. Manage your time. Understand what your needs are every single day.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, Laura, not every admissions rep is the same, right? Like some have different talent challenges. Like what's your approach with a new admissions rep who may be struggling?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I will say, I do tend to try to praise others that are doing really well so that they can see the good behavior. Like if I'm trying to increase follow-ups, I'll just say it because I know that we all struggle with follow-ups and the scheduling. If you don't schedule it on your calendar, all those things, I agree. So if you have somebody that's really doing well, I try to spend more time on that, praising them and showcasing how they're doing a great job and why it's working, why we do it. So because a lot of times your newer reps, they're not connecting why you're saying do it this specific way. They're like, why can't I just do it this way? And then also, of course, you want to come alongside them and say, okay, tell me how you're approaching it. I'm seeing this result. This is the best practice that we'd like to get to, but tell me how you're approaching it. What's the barrier? Why aren't you doing it the way that, we trained you? What's stopping you? Why are you getting stuck? And then here's a way that I recommend. Do you feel like you could do that? Or what would it be that is stopping you from doing that? Usually they have some answers. Okay, how can we break that down, make it more simple? Here's why I think you're stuck on that solution. How about we try this? Can you try this for a couple months and it'll get to this result, but it's still within how you work and what appeals to your brain? Because like you said, not every person is the same. So they're not going to organize the same. They're not going to approach their work the same. So trying to get to how is it that you work, and let me find a solution that will get us to our goal. And then if they're just not getting it, like I said, that spending more time on praising their peers that are doing a great job, that it really becomes modeling for them. Eventually it will click, but you got to keep on them to say like, hey, how's that working? Can I offer you a new solution? But ultimately, if somebody really doesn't have the interest in doing it, I'm always hoping that them watching their peer, they're the rock star of the team, will finally let it click. Like, I'm always missing my goals. They're always making their goals. Laura keeps talking about this is the thing. Let me finally try what she's saying.
Yeah, thank you. You guys, we are at time. This has been such a good discussion. We had just one more question. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you at Rob, and if you could, stick around, we're going to start our next session, but if you could stick around and answer it in the chat. The question for Rob was, how do we improve tour to application? And Laura, Amy, Rob, thank you guys so much. We could do this all day. So much good information. Thank you for sharing. Stay in the chat. Everybody in the chat, please give props to these panelists for taking time out of their day to join us, to share their knowledge. We really appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.
You got it.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, we're going to go straight into our next session. We have